Who was Mark Liffman? The man who met a violent end in the parking lot of the Garden Route Mall in George on November 3, 2024. Mark Liffman was a controversial figure in Cape Town's underworld for decades, though he always claimed to be an innocent businessman with a desire to make a positive impact. Growing up in Rondebosch and later Sea Point, Liffman matriculated from Sea Point Boys High School and began as an entrepreneur early on, selling homemade peanut clusters before branching out into taxis, pies, spices, and eventually, property and security. Over the past 3 decades, Liffman had multiple brushes with the law, becoming a key figure in Cape Town's underworld. Yet, accusations never stuck. He was acquitted of sex charges, alleged drug dealing, and most recently faced charges related to the murder of Brian Weinstein. He was also embroiled in a high-stakes legal battle with former beerhouse owner Randolph Jorberg over a 1 million rand defamation claim. Liffman was born in Cape Town, raised in Rondebosch until the age of 12, before moving to Sea Point. His mother, a teacher, instilled in him a respect for education, though academics never truly captivated him. He grew up with strong ties to his Jewish heritage, attending Temple Israel, and by the time he graduated from Sea Point Boys High in 1984 at 17, he was already showing a unique mix of confidence and ambition. His early business instincts soon shifted from confectionery to real estate, where he found a new calling. At one point, he was selling up to 30 houses per month. This led to an introduction to Jerome "Donkey" Boysen, a pivotal figure in his life. In 2001, after purchasing properties in Delft, Liffman ran into trouble when a gang forcibly reclaimed one of his properties. In need of help, he turned to Andre Naude, a well-known bouncer, who introduced him to Boysen. The issue was quickly resolved with a few phone calls, and Liffman reclaimed his property. At the time, Liffman claimed ignorance of Boysen's gang affiliations, believing him to be merely a former rugby star and a building inspector for the city of Cape Town. Boysen's connection to the Sexy Boys, a prominent gang on the Cape Flats, only came to light for Liffman later. Despite Boysen's gangland ties, Liffman described him as a fantastic guy, and over nearly 2 decades, they not only became close friends, but also business partners in property ventures. In 2005, Liffman acquired the El Rio Hotel in Sea Point, a property at the center of a neighborhood plagued by drugs and prostitution. After extensive renovations, Liffman claimed this was a turning point, both for the property and the surrounding area, and credits it as a key moment in his career. "If people ask me where I made my real money, it was from property," he stated. Liffman saw himself as a force for improvement, asserting he wanted to fix things and never be a slumlord. His efforts were noticed, and as the building cleared of criminal activity, property values in Sea Point rose. But his reputation took hits as he became associated with figures like Boysen and Yuri Yulian. Liffman met Yulian, also known as the Russian, at a Sea Point poker club. The two collaborated on various property projects, including the Fairmont Apartments. Liffman saw potential in Yuri and tried steering him toward legitimate business ventures, but Yuri's gambling habits eroded his success. Their partnership ended in tragedy when Yuri and his daughter were shot at a birthday dinner that Liffman attended briefly. Though rumors circulated that Liffman might have tipped off the killers, he denied any involvement, saying he left early, leaving Yuri and his daughter dining together. In another controversy, the Jockey Club of South Africa banned Liffman for life in 2001 from horse racing over allegations of intimidating jockeys in the late 1990s. Around the same time, Cape Town's nightclub security was controlled by Cyril Bika, a powerful figure with connections to police and the Hard Livings, one of the Cape's major gangs. Bika's control ended abruptly in March 2011 when he was gunned down, allegedly following a rift with Ralph Stanfield, who had met Liffman just before Bika's assassination. After Bika's death, there were attempts to unify the various security factions under one nightclub security group, but this initiative failed. Mark Liffman then emerged as the new strongman in the industry, transitioning from his early days of owning taxis and pie shops to becoming a property mogul. However, Liffman's career was riddled with legal troubles, from charges of attempted murder to accusations of running unregistered security operations. In December 2020, he was arrested for the alleged murder of Brian Stanfield, which he adamantly denied. Liffman played a central role in forming a new security outfit called Specialized Protection Services. By 2012, SPS was reported to serve 146 clubs with 350 bouncers trained in martial arts. But competition and betrayal among rival kingpins ultimately led to the shutdown of SPS after a violent episode of Underworld assassinations. The shutdown of SPS only temporarily cooled tensions as Liffman and his associates continued to solidify control over nightclub security in Cape Town. In June 2015, a shocking incident on Long Street led to public outrage when a doorman at the popular bar, the Beer House, was fatally stabbed. Employed directly by the beer house's owner, his murder raised suspicions that he was targeted because the establishment had resisted paying for protection services. Amid the assassinations connected to figures in the underworld, gangs, and nightclub security, Mark Liffman's influence over the nightclub security scene only seemed to solidify. Adding to Liffman's mystique as a powerful, connected individual, a photo of him attending a birthday rally for former President Jacob Zuma in Cape Town appeared in a Sunday newspaper in April 2014. For years, the so-called Liffman Group held a tight grip on nightclub security and bouncer services. However, in March 2017, a formidable rival emerged, Nafiz Modak, an ambitious player who aggressively challenged Liffman's dominance. Alongside his associates, Modak sought to take over the lucrative security contracts Liffman controlled, backed by similar connections to Cape Town's underworld. Known for his ruthless approach and experience in bouncer operations, Modak swiftly disrupted the balance in the nightclub industry. By 2018, a fierce competition erupted between the Liffman and Modak factions, with each vying to control the security arrangements for Cape Town's nightlife. Modak appeared to gain an edge, capturing several of the security contracts once held by the Liffman Group. But despite Modak's gains, the conflict between the two groups continued to fuel violent power struggles that left nightclub owners and restaurateurs caught in the crossfire of intimidation and extortion. Meanwhile, Liffman faced mounting issues with the South African Revenue Service, SARS. Roughly a decade earlier, he was hit with a tax bill amounting to 388 million rand in the Enforcers. Liffman alleged that SARS's probe was based on intelligence from what would be known as the SARS Rogue Unit. Yet, this narrative ultimately fell apart, as SARS denounced it as baseless. The Rogue Unit had become a key element of what many saw as a manipulated storyline amidst the nation's state capture crisis. In February 2022, Liffman's tax troubles resurfaced when City Press reported that he was fighting a bid by SARS to liquidate his property business. By 2016, Liffman, Andre Naud, and brothers Jerome and Colin Boyson of the Sexy Boys Gang had established the Brotherhood, a formidable group that dominated the nightclub security industry in Cape Town. Tensions, however, arose in November 2016 after altercations between Colin Boyson and Cor Naidu, a close ally of Jerome Boyson, and alleged 27 gang member. The state's indictment suggested that Naidu, active in the Liffman group, was involved in extorting businesses within the nightlife scene. Nade attempted to mediate a separation between the Brotherhood and Colin Boyson. Yet, in March 2017, Jerome Boyson grew concerned when Colin aligned himself with Modak. According to the indictment, a meeting took place at William Red Stevens's home, where Liffman purportedly expressed a desire to regain control over the city center by force. He insisted he'd need 100 to 200 men prepared to intimidate nightclub owners to shift back to his side. On April 9, 2017, Jerome Boyson, Nod, and others allegedly descended on Cape Town's nightlife venues, armed and wearing bulletproof vests, intimidating patrons and causing chaos until police ordered them to disperse. Following this, the Liffman group reportedly adjusted tactics, forming a 27-gang hit squad to target members of the Modak group and its affiliates. Liffman and his associates, however, denied all charges, pleading not guilty. In April 2021, just months after Liffman's arrest, Modak was apprehended over the murder of anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear, who was killed outside his home in September 2020. Kinnear had been probing an arms racket allegedly involving Modak and several senior police officers. Modak faced an astonishing 3,100 charges, with the state describing him as the head of the Modak Enterprise, a syndicate linked to police corruption, murder, extortion, and gang violence. Authorities claimed Modak used members of the terrible West Siders and junky Funky Kids gangs for contract killings. Modak, like Liffman, maintained his innocence, pleading not guilty to multiple murder counts. With both cases pending in court, the handling of each highlighted contrasting fates. While Liffman and Jerome Boyson secured release on 100,000 Rand bail, Modak was denied bail and held in Goodwood Prison. The divergent treatment influenced power dynamics in the CBD's security scene. Then, a seismic event rocked the Underworld on November 3, 2024, when Liffman was reportedly assassinated in the Garden Route Mall parking lot. Allegedly set up by a trusted associate, he went without his usual security detail and was ambushed by two attackers. The motives remain speculative, and the question lingers as to who backdoored him. At the time of his death, Liffman was embroiled in a legal battle with Randolph Yorberg, the owner of the beer house, demanding 1 million Rand for defamation. This dispute stemmed from a long-standing feud that began with the 2015 murder of doorman Joe Kunene outside the beer house. Kunene's death was rumored to be linked to Yorberg's refusal to accept security services from Liffman's group. As recently as July 2024, the beer house closed down, citing extortion issues. In an affidavit dated October 21st, Liffman accused Yorberg of defamation on the TV program Carte Blanche and in social media posts, adding yet another chapter to his complex legacy. Mark Liffman, a prominent underworld figure in Cape Town, was shot and killed in the parking lot of Garden Route Mall. A lot of questions are yet to be answered, and in this video, we would try our best to answer your questions. Questions like, was his murder connected to his ongoing trial for underworld activities, or was it related to his disputes with rival factions? Who ordered the hit? Did it involve organized crime groups in Cape Town? Liffman usually had bodyguards. Why was he alone at the time? Will the authorities connect his death to broader gang dynamics in the Cape Town area? How will his death affect other cases tied to his activities? Mark Liffman, an influential figure in South Africa's underworld, was known for his alleged involvement in organized crime and the violent nightclub and drug turf battles in Cape Town. His criminal record included a series of serious allegations such as murder, attempted murder, money laundering, and gang-related offenses. Liffman was closely associated with prominent underworld figures like Jerome Donkey Boyson and Nafiz Modak, with whom he often clashed over territorial control of Cape Town's nightclubs. His name also surfaced in connection with the murder of Brian Weinstein in 2017, a crime for which he was facing charges. Liffman's public life was usually marked by the presence of bodyguards, which made his unaccompanied appearance at the Garden Route Mall on the day of his assassination unusual. Reports indicate he was in George to play golf when he was ambushed and shot, a murder that many speculate was a result of ongoing gang rivalries. His court appearance was scheduled for the following Monday, adding speculation that his assassination might have been preemptive to prevent further legal actions. The dramatic circumstances of his life and eventual death have underscored Liffman's status as a central figure in South Africa's criminal underworld. His assassination marked the end of an era, but also opened questions regarding control and future conflicts within the Cape Town gang scene. The two men charged with his murder are identified as Johannes Jacobs, 53, and Gerhard Bezuidenhout, 37. Police allege that they fled the scene in a white VW Polo after the shooting, and both suspects have recently made their first appearance in court in George. Due to the sensitivity of the case, the court has ordered that no photos of the suspects be published. At this time, Liffman was involved in numerous criminal activities, including associations with gang leader Jerome Donkey Boyson. The two were implicated in the murder of steroid dealer Brian Weinstein, who was killed in 2017. Liffman and Boyson were part of a broader network of gang-related activities that included attempts to control Cape Town's nightclub scene. Several questions surrounding Mark Liffman's murder remain unanswered, and the lack of clarity on certain aspects has fueled ongoing speculation. 1. Who orchestrated Liffman's assassination? Although Liffman had numerous underworld connections and rivals, no definitive information has pinpointed who exactly ordered or organized his assassination. Given his history with prominent gang leaders like Jerome Donkey Boyson, it's plausible that his death involved organized crime, but clear evidence is still lacking regarding the exact mastermind behind it. 2. Was the murder directly related to his underworld dealings? Liffman was involved in multiple criminal enterprises, including alleged steroid distribution and diamond dealing, with high-profile enemies like Brian Weinstein, a rival who Liffman and Boyson allegedly planned to kill previously. However, whether Liffman's assassination was a retaliatory act, a power struggle, or simply the result of ongoing underworld tensions is unclear. 3. Were any law enforcement officials involved? Liffman's connections allegedly extended to corrupt police officers, raising questions about possible interference in his case. Law enforcement's role in shielding Liffman or potentially neglecting leads after his murder has drawn scrutiny, but no concrete links have been confirmed. 4th, was Liffman's death linked to recent criminal trials? Liffman and his associates faced serious charges in trials involving allegations of violence and organized crime. It's uncertain if his murder was meant to prevent him from testifying or was connected to information he might have held about others in the underworld. The investigation is still active, with a variety of unresolved angles adding to the mystery. Investigators are looking into these complexities, but due to the entrenched secrecy of the criminal networks involved, progress has been limited. In April 2021, a few months after Liffman's arrest, Modak was apprehended for the murder of SAP's anti-gang detective Charles Kinnear, who was investigating a gun smuggling operation involving Modak and senior police officers. Modak faces over 3,100 charges, including murder, extortion, abduction, fraud, racketeering, and other serious offenses. Extortion has a long history in Cape Town, but in recent years, both its frequency and scope have risen significantly. In September 2020, then Police Minister Bheki Cele announced the formation of a steering committee, including the City of Cape Town, the South African Police Service, SAPS, the National Prosecuting Authority, and the South African Revenue Service, to tackle extortion, which he misleadingly described as a new issue.
It cannot be that when we have been here, there is no change after that. The community here, the young people, must be able to walk alone when they want to walk alone. We should not convert the houses to prison where people lock doors at 6 because criminalities have taken over. There is a government here, and this government is responding and decisively. Mapoisa, you are not tourists here. You are not visiting this place. You are not coming here to see who's right, who's wrong. Your job, Mapoisa, as we have invited you from different places to be here, is to make the lives of criminals difficult.
This committee was later replaced by a SAPS extortion task team managed by the Western Cape's Organized Crime Investigations Unit, though the team has undergone multiple reconfigurations. Gangs and criminal enterprises involved in extortion were heavily impacted by the strict lockdown during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Curfews and temporary closures of nightclubs and taverns hindered their operations. While some adapted by engaging in illegal trade of cigarettes and alcohol, products restricted during this period, their extortion revenue dropped. However, as the country gradually reopened, extortion activities surged. A 2021 report on Cape Town's extortion noted that losses from the lockdown led to extortion gangs becoming even more aggressive. The history of organized extortion in Cape Town's Central Business District, CBD, traces back to the late 1990s when Cyril Bika and his associates began targeting the nightlife industry. They adopted the classic protection fee model, where criminal groups use threats and violence to coerce businesses into paying for protection and hiring affiliated private security firms. Bika's rise marked the start of large-scale extortion in the CBD. His tactics involved forcing nightlife venues to employ his bouncers and security companies, Pro Access and Red Security, through intense intimidation. Businesses that resisted faced property damage, and their staff and customers were harassed. As more businesses yielded to Bika's demands, his security companies became established, reducing overt violence, except for occasional clashes with rival security providers. If you've not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. In 2011, a shift occurred when Bika was assassinated in March. A new player, Mark Liffman, entered the scene aiming to control Bika's former territory. Liffman, alongside Andre Nod, Jerome Donkey Boyson, and Colin Boyson, merged Bika's security firms with Nod's to form specialized protection services. Nightlife venues that had hoped Bika's death would end extortion demands soon faced a renewed cycle of violence. By 2012, specialized protection services dominated the security arrangements previously held by Bika's companies, and the level of violence decreased again. This uneasy peace was disrupted in 2017 when Nafiz Modak and his associates, under a rival security brand, began competing for Liffman's contracts. Modak's entry reintroduced violence into the industry as his group aggressively fought for control. Many of Cape Town's extortion networks rely on alliances with criminal gangs from outside the CBD. A 2017 study revealed that these protection rackets operate through a supply chain of violence, outsourcing aggression from Cape Town's peripheral gang areas into the CBD. Bika, for instance, was closely associated with the Hard Livings gang, while Liffman's partner, Jerome Boyson, allegedly led the Sexy Boys gang. Liffman's group reportedly leveraged ties with the 27's Numbers gang to strengthen their operations, while Modak has been linked to the terrible West Siders and Junkie Funky Kids gangs, groups known for violent tactics and a base near the CBD. All these gangs are also active in the illegal drug trade, and their involvement in CBD extortion has allowed them to expand into providing drugs and sex workers at nightlife venues, in addition to security services. The COVID-19 lockdown, which began in March 2020, severely impacted Cape Town's entertainment sector, especially nightlife. This extended closure affected extortion revenues, but as businesses resumed, extortion rates spiked, with criminal groups expanding their reach to coffee shops, daytime restaurants, hotels, and luxury apartments. In December 2020, Liffman and Boyson were arrested for the murder of international steroid smuggler Brian Weinstein and faced charges under the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. Liffman also faced allegations of conspiring to murder multiple individuals, including Modak and former Springbok rugby player Zane Killian. According to an indictment, by 2016, Liffman, Nod, and the Boyson brothers had solidified control over Cape Town's nightlife security industry, referring to themselves as the Brotherhood. However, tensions surfaced in 2016 after conflicts between Colin Boyson and Kor Naidu, a prominent associate of the Liffman Group. In March 2017, concerns grew within the Brotherhood about Colin Boyson's possible alliance with Modak. A meeting at the home of alleged 27's gang leader William Red Stevens revealed Liffman's plan to regain control over the CBD, seeking up to 200 men to intimidate venue owners into abandoning Modak's group. On April 10, 2017, a group led by Jerome Boyson and Nod entered several nightlife venues, armed and disruptive, before being ordered to leave by police. The Liffman Group then reportedly organized a hit squad from the 27's gang to target members of Modak's faction. Both Liffman and Modak have denied the charges against them. In April 2021, a few months after Liffman's arrest, Modak was apprehended for the murder of ASAP's anti-gang detective Charles Kinnear, who was investigating a gun smuggling operation involving Modak and senior police officers. Modak faces over 3,100 charges, including murder, extortion, abduction, fraud, racketeering, and other serious offenses. Despite the gravity of their charges, Liffman and Jerome Boyson were released on bail, although they faced Schedule 6 offenses, requiring exceptional reasons for bail. Modak, however, was denied bail and remains in Goodwood Prison, which could influence the power dynamics among extortion groups in Cape Town's CBD. The origins of organized criminal activity in KwaZulu-Natal can be traced back to 2014, when armed individuals disrupted services managed by the eThekwini municipality in Umlazi Township. These individuals demanded a share in local projects, and by 2016, their disruptive actions had expanded throughout the province, targeting both government and private development projects. Those involved in these activities eventually organized into groups called local business forums. They began attacking construction sites, threatening workers and officials to demand either payment or a stake in ongoing projects, essentially engaging in a form of systematic extortion. By late 2018, the reach of this construction mafia had extended to other regions of South Africa. The Western Cape experienced its first major construction mafia incident in March 2019, when an armed gang halted the construction of a 2.4 billion rand German oil storage facility in Saldanha Bay, overseen by the Wilson Bailey Homes Ovcon (WBHO) company. Webster Mafeebe from the South African Forum of Civil Engineering Contractors described the aftermath as resembling a war zone, with vehicles and buildings left charred and destroyed. By 2020, the impact of the construction mafia had spread across Cape Town, affecting infrastructure and housing projects. In June 2023, Quintus, a prominent official, noted the intensifying issue, stating that these criminal groups were effectively holding the city and its contractors hostage, leading to significant service delivery disruptions for residents who rely on these projects. In February 2024, City of Cape Town official Robbie Roberts revealed that 3 billion rand worth of construction projects were jeopardized due to extortion. The city was reportedly trying to secure 22 sites, of which 6 had been shut down due to threats against contractors. Roberts disclosed that contractors were often forced to halt work under threat until they either paid a portion of the contract's value or awarded security contracts to the extortionists. Some construction companies even factored these extortion demands into their bids as a cost. The situation has escalated to dangerous levels, with at least 10 murders and multiple shootings occurring at Cape Town construction sites by early 2023. Tragically, these incidents include the targeted assassination of officials and workers, such as Wendy Kloppers, an official with the Environmental Affairs Department who was killed during a site visit. Kloppers' murder, believed to be a case of mistaken identity, may have stemmed from the city's refusal to meet extortion demands linked to Ralph Stanfield, an alleged leader of the 28's gang. City officials and contractors continue to face serious threats, prompting the municipality to increase security spending significantly. They've implemented armed escorts and even established safe houses for high-risk personnel. Councillor J.P. Smith indicated the city has set up a war room to address the increasing violence and threats surrounding construction projects. Cape Town's taxi industry, another vital sector in the city, is not immune to such organized criminal activity. Operating largely informally, the taxi industry serves as a primary mode of transportation for working-class residents. However, it's also known for its deeply ingrained violent practices. Since the end of apartheid in 1994, powerful taxi associations, referred to as mother bodies, have resorted to mafia-like tactics to maintain control and fend off competition. Cape Town has 3 main associations: the Mitchell's Plain Taxi Association, CODATA, and CATA. Rivalries between CODATA and CATA have led to violent outbreaks, with the period from 2020 to 2021 being particularly deadly. During this time, 239 people lost their lives in taxi-related violence in the province. Extortion is prevalent within the taxi industry, where operators are required to pay various fees, including membership and route-specific dues. These fees are often subject to sudden increases, and additional ad hoc payments, known as bucket money, may also be demanded. Enforcers, known as isinkabi, are frequently hired to carry out threats and ensure compliance. Some of these enforcers have used their violent tactics to gain influence, eventually rising to prominent positions within the taxi industry. One such figure is Bonka Malala, an alleged hitman who has ascended to a powerful role as a taxi boss. Malala owns a variety of businesses, including a taxi fleet, a construction company, and a bus company, and has affiliations with both CATA and the Eastern Cape Som Taxi Association. Malala's influence extends beyond the taxi industry, with reported links to gangs involved in township extortion. In December 2023, he was arrested in Pretoria during a large-scale operation by Western and Eastern Cape police forces. He faces multiple charges, including fraud, intimidation, murder, attempted murder, and illegal possession of firearms. Additionally, Malala has been linked to the assassination of a rival taxi boss, Cam Dumisa Dofu, the chairperson of Yona Taxi Association. Dofu had reportedly filed a police complaint in May 2023 after Malala threatened his life. Tragically, Dofu was killed in October 2023 by unidentified gunmen, underscoring the violent power struggles that plague both the taxi industry and the broader extortion ecosystem in Cape Town. Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman Loera was born on April 4, 1957, in the small rural community of La Tuna, in the municipality of Badiraguato, Sinaloa, Mexico. This region, nestled in the Sierra Madre Mountains, is infamous for its poverty and has long been a breeding ground for drug cultivation and trafficking. Guzman was one of 7 children born to Emilio Guzman Bustillos and Maria Consuelo Loera Perez. Poverty and hardship shaped his childhood. His family lived in a modest home with little access to basic amenities like running water or electricity. To support their household, they farmed poppy and marijuana, crops commonly grown in the area. Emilio Guzman, El Chapo's father, was reportedly abusive and spent much of his earnings on alcohol, leaving Joaquin and his siblings to fend for themselves. Guzman's nickname, El Chapo, meaning shorty, was a reference to his short stature. He was just 5 feet 6 inches tall. As a teenager, Guzman started helping his father cultivate marijuana and poppies. This was his first introduction to the drug trade. By the time he was in his late teens, Joaquin had developed a reputation for being shrewd and ambitious. His family's precarious financial situation and his father's neglect pushed him to seek opportunities beyond his hometown. In his early 20s, Guzman left La Tuna to work with Hector El Güero Palma, a young drug trafficker in Sinaloa. Palma recognized Guzman's loyalty and business acumen, and he became a key ally. Guzman's responsibilities involved overseeing shipments, ensuring that loads reached their destinations without interference from law enforcement or rivals. His ruthless approach to discipline, he was known to execute workers who failed to meet deadlines, quickly earned him respect and fear. During this time, Guzman began forging alliances with other up-and-coming. His partnership with Palma proved instrumental in introducing him to Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, known as the Godfather of Mexican. Félix Gallardo controlled the Guadalajara cartel, Mexico's most powerful drug syndicate in the 1980s. By the mid-1980s, Guzman had climbed the ranks of the Guadalajara cartel. His primary role was managing logistics for smuggling cocaine from Colombia into the United States. Guzman specialized in using innovative smuggling methods. For instance, he utilized hidden compartments in trucks and even aircraft to transport drugs across borders. These methods allowed him to avoid detection and deliver massive quantities of narcotics, earning him a reputation as a logistical genius. Guzman's ambition, however, stretched beyond being a subordinate. Following the arrest of Félix Gallardo in 1989, the Guadalajara cartel splintered into smaller factions. Guzman seized the opportunity to create his own, the Sinaloa, alongside Palma and Ismael El Mayo Zambada. This was the beginning of his dominance in the drug trade. Under Guzman's leadership, the Sinaloa adopted a brutal but efficient business model. they established direct relationships with Colombian, ensuring a steady supply of cocaine. Guzman also diversified operations by increasing the production and distribution of heroin, marijuana, and methamphetamine. Guzman focused on securing the most lucrative drug corridors into the United States, including the Tijuana and Juarez plazas. His aggressive expansion often led to bloody confrontations with rival cartels. He is credited with pioneering the use of cross-border tunnels equipped with ventilation and lighting systems. These tunnels allowed the Sinaloa cartel to transport drugs under the U.S.-Mexico border undetected. Guzman built a reputation for rewarding loyalty and punishing betrayal. He fostered deep ties within the Sinaloa region, ensuring that locals protected and supported him. He mastered the art of buying off officials, including police officers, military personnel, and politicians. His ability to corrupt authorities gave the Sinaloa cartel a significant edge over its competitors. By the early 1990s, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman had risen from a poverty-stricken farmer in La Tuna to one of the most powerful drug lords in Mexico. His strategic mind, ruthless ambition, and innovative trafficking methods laid the foundation for what would become a global drug empire. Following Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's meteoric rise to power as the head of the Sinaloa cartel, his empire began attracting international attention. While his innovative smuggling strategies, violence, and corruption helped him evade authorities for years, he would eventually face numerous arrests and escape from custody in ways that would further cement his infamy. El Chapo's first significant capture occurred in Guatemala on June 9, 1993, following the assassination of Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo. Authorities initially believed the killing was linked to Guzman, as it occurred during a shootout between the Sinaloa and Tijuana cartels at the Guadalajara airport. While the assassination was later deemed accidental, the high-profile nature of the incident forced the Mexican government to intensify its pursuit of Guzman. Guzman fled to Guatemala as pressure mounted, but he was arrested by Guatemalan authorities after being tracked down near the border. Reports suggest that his capture involved a mix of local cooperation and bribery, with officials from both countries working together to bring him to justice. Guzman was extradited to Mexico shortly after. Guzman was sentenced to 20 years in prison and incarcerated at the Federal Social Readaptation Center No. 1, also known as La Palma, a maximum security prison. However, despite being behind bars, Guzman continued to control the Sinaloa cartel. He bribed prison officials and used his influence to maintain his grip on cartel operations, proving that even imprisonment couldn't stop his power. After 8 years in prison, El Chapo orchestrated his first escape on January 19, 2001, in an event that humiliated the Mexican government and showcased his resourcefulness. Guzman's escape was facilitated by an elaborate web of corruption. It is estimated that he spent millions of dollars bribing guards, prison staff, and even senior officials. One of his most trusted allies, Javier Camberos Rivera, a prison guard, played a pivotal role in smuggling him out. Guzman reportedly escaped by hiding in a laundry cart. On the night of his escape, Camberos and other guards wheeled the cart containing Guzman out of the prison. Witnesses later claimed he walked unchallenged through several security checkpoints, aided by complicit guards who looked the other way. Once outside, Guzman was transported in a waiting vehicle to a safe location. His escape was a severe embarrassment to the Mexican government, which launched an extensive manhunt. However, Guzman managed to evade capture for over a decade, during which he solidified his position as one of the most powerful drug lords in the world. The twin brothers who betrayed Joaquin El Chapo Guzman are Pedro and Margarito, also known as the Flores twins. They were key players in El Chapo's drug trafficking operations in the United States and later turned against him by becoming government informants. The Flores twins were born and raised in the Little Village neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois, an area with a history of gang activity and drug trafficking. They grew up in a family connected to the drug trade and eventually became highly influential in the narcotics business. The twins served as major distributors for the Sinaloa cartel in the United States. They were responsible for trafficking vast quantities of cocaine, heroin, and other drugs into U.S. cities. Their operation was massive, reportedly handling shipments of up to 2,000 kilograms of cocaine per month, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Pedro and Margarito were highly trusted by Guzman because of their efficiency and loyalty in maintaining the cartel's drug pipeline. They communicated directly with him and often traveled to Mexico for meetings. The Flores twins decided to cooperate with U.S. authorities in 2008. Their betrayal was motivated by several factors, such as realizing the dangers of working within the violent world of the Sinaloa cartel. As violence between rival cartels escalated, their safety and that of their families became increasingly uncertain. The twins had been under investigation by U.S. law enforcement for years. Facing inevitable capture, they chose to cooperate in exchange for reduced sentences. Pedro and Margarito reportedly prioritized their wives and children, ensuring they could live normal lives outside the cartel's reach. Once they decided to cooperate, the Flores twins became key informants for U.S. federal authorities. Their contributions were instrumental in building the case against Guzman. The twins secretly recorded phone calls with Guzman, providing damning evidence of his involvement in drug trafficking. In one call, El Chapo can be heard discussing shipments and payment methods. They testified during Guzman's 2019 trial in New York, detailing the operations of the Sinaloa cartel and Guzman's leadership style. His testimony provided insight into the cartel's logistics, smuggling methods, and violent enforcement tactics. The twins helped dismantle key parts of the cartel's distribution network in the U.S., giving authorities a roadmap to understand how drugs were moved, stored, and sold. In 2015, Pedro and Margarito Flores were each sentenced to 14 years in prison after pleading guilty to drug conspiracy charges. Their cooperation resulted in relatively light sentences, considering the scale of their crimes. Following their sentencing, the twins entered the Witness Protection Program along with their families. Their exact whereabouts are unknown, as they are considered high-value targets for retaliation by the Sinaloa cartel. After 13 years on the run, Guzman was arrested again on February 22, 2014, in the Pacific resort city of Mazatlan, Sinaloa. Mexican authorities, working closely with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, had been tracking Guzman for months. The key to his capture was intelligence gathered from intercepted communications and surveillance of his associates. Authorities traced his movements to a series of safe houses in Culiacan, many of which were connected by underground tunnels. In one instance, Guzman narrowly escaped capture by fleeing through a secret tunnel connected to a drainage system. Despite these setbacks, authorities eventually located him at a beachfront condominium in Mazatlan. A joint operation by the Mexican Navy and federal police led to Guzman's arrest. He was taken into custody without a single shot being fired, as he was reportedly caught off guard while sleeping. At the time of his arrest, Guzman had been living with his wife, Emma Coronel Aispuro, and their twin daughters. Following his capture, Guzman was sent to the Altiplano Maximum Security Prison in Almoloya de Juarez, Mexico. Authorities touted his arrest as a major victory in the fight against drug trafficking. However, this sense of triumph would prove short-lived. On July 11, 2015, El Chapo escaped from Altiplano in what would become one of the most audacious prison breaks in history. The escape involved a 1.5-kilometer-long which began in a construction site outside the prison and ended directly beneath the shower area of Guzman's cell. The tunnel was equipped with lighting, ventilation, and even a motorbike mounted on rails, allowing Guzman to travel through it quickly. This level of sophistication demonstrated the immense resources of the Sinaloa cartel and the complicity of insiders. Guzman entered the shower area, the only part of his cell not covered by surveillance cameras. He disappeared through a hole in the floor, descending into the... Once inside, Guzman rode the motorbike through the tunnel to the construction site. From there, he was taken to a safe house by cartel operatives. His escape sparked an international scandal. The Mexican government faced harsh criticism for failing to secure one of the world's most dangerous criminals, despite having knowledge of his previous escape. A massive manhunt ensued, involving thousands of Mexican soldiers and federal agents, as well as U.S. assistance. Guzman's freedom lasted only 6 months. On January 8, 2016, he was recaptured in the city of Los Mochis, Sinaloa. Guzman's recapture was partly due to his decision to contact actors and filmmakers to discuss a potential biographical film about his life. These communications were intercepted by Mexican and U.S. authorities, providing valuable intelligence on his whereabouts. Mexican Marines stormed a safe house in Los Mochis after tracking Guzman's associates to the location. A fierce gun battle ensued, during which 5 of Guzman's men were killed. Guzman attempted to escape through a tunnel and later stole a car, but was ultimately captured by pursuing forces. After his recapture, Guzman was returned to Altiplano, but under much stricter security measures. In 2017, he was extradited to the United States to face charges. This marked the end of his reign, as he was sentenced to life in prison in 2019 and incarcerated in the ADX Florence Supermax prison in Colorado. Joaquin El Chapo. Guzman's reign as one of the most infamous drug lords in history left an indelible mark on global drug trafficking, Mexican society, and international law enforcement. As the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, he built a multi-billion-dollar drug empire, innovated smuggling methods, and influenced the global narcotics trade in profound ways. However, his legacy is also tied to the violence, corruption, and destabilization of Mexico and its institutions. Under El Chapo's leadership, the Sinaloa cartel became one of the most powerful and far-reaching drug trafficking organizations in the world. Guzman's cartel controlled the production, transport, and distribution of multiple narcotics, including cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and marijuana. At the height of his power, Guzman supplied an estimated 60 to 70% of the illegal drugs smuggled into the United States. The Sinaloa cartel established sophisticated distribution networks in major U.S. cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. Beyond North America, the cartel expanded into Europe, Asia, and Africa, leveraging international shipping routes and forming alliances with other criminal organizations. The Sinaloa cartel's vast financial resources allowed it to operate with impunity. Guzman's escape from prison twice in 2001 and 2015 demonstrated how easily he could manipulate the system. His ability to buy off officials not only weakened public trust in law enforcement, but also made it more difficult for other cartels to be prosecuted. Guzman's leadership style was marked by extreme violence, both against rival cartels and within his own organization. His battle for control of drug routes, especially the lucrative Tijuana, Juarez, and Nuevo Laredo corridors, led to thousands of deaths. El Chapo's drug empire generated billions of dollars annually. At his peak, Guzman was listed on Forbes' billionaires list from 2009 to 2013, with an estimated net worth of over $1 billion. This immense wealth allowed the cartel to reinvest in infrastructure, weapons, and corruption. While the cartel's money funded a shadow economy in rural areas, it also perpetuated cycles of poverty and violence. In some areas, Guzman was seen as a Robin Hood figure, providing jobs and financial aid to impoverished communities. He funded schools, clinics, and other infrastructure projects, buying loyalty from local populations. However, this philanthropy was often a smokescreen for his violent operations. El Chapo's activities forced the U.S. and Mexico to enhance collaboration in fighting drug trafficking. Guzman's legacy highlighted the limitations of the war on drugs. While his imprisonment dealt a symbolic blow to cartels, the demand for drugs in the U.S. and Europe has continued to fuel the narcotics trade. The Sinaloa cartel remains a dominant force even after his downfall, emphasizing the systemic challenges in addressing drug trafficking. Even after his incarceration in the ADX Florence Supermax prison, the Sinaloa cartel remains one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. Leadership has reportedly passed to Ismael El Mayo Zambada and Guzman's sons, known as Los Chapitos. Guzman's life and operations symbolize the intertwined issues of poverty, corruption, and demand for narcotics that fuel the drug trade. His ability to thrive despite multiple arrests and escapes underscores the structural weaknesses in combating organized crime. El Chapo's empire reshaped the drug trade globally, introducing new smuggling methods and expanding into emerging markets. His story serves as both a cautionary tale and a stark reminder of the resilience of transnational criminal networks. Thank you for watching. Kindly drop your thoughts in the comments section and see you in our next video.